Hi, AT from CNC at Home. I talked in a previous video about having some issues with my laser and ordering a new controller board. What I ended up getting was not only a controller board, but a laser emitter, some wiring, and a new power supply. And so this laser is a fixed focus versus a variable focus, and putting that on is going to be a little tricky because that's not how the LE5040 was designed. I contacted SaneSmart and they were able to hook me up with this. It's not really a conversion kit, but it's a new gantry assembly. So what I want to do is get this put together, get the new laser on there, and see how it works. Here are the directions for getting this put together. They're not super clear, but it's enough information to get it put together. So we'll base everything off of the picture and off of what it says to do, and it should go together smoothly. Part of the difficulty is the grounding wire and the PWM, or the pulse width modulation wire, need to be reversed going from my motor controller to the laser controller itself. A simple switch. Here you can see the line, the colors match up, the red, white, and black. And as we pan down, the white and the black cross over each other. The black is the ground wire, the white is the PWM wire. That's what controls essentially the brightness or the power of the laser. We need to disassemble the current gantry, so I'm going to take off my homemade air assist, get that pulled out, and then pull some of the wires off. Once that's done, I'll need to undo the sides of the gantry rail itself so I can pull the gantry off. Now that that's off, we just undo the timing belt and we can pull the gantry off. All I really need from this is the stepper motor. And so I'm just going to undo those 4 bolts and I should be able to pull the stepper motor right off. There we go, 1 stepper motor. Now to go do the assembly. I started pulling a couple of the screws out and then realized that what I need to do first is pull the paper off of the acrylic. This is just a protective paper. So I'll go ahead and get that pulled off first. Now that we have that pulled off, first step is to mount the laser onto this piece. And it should just take 4 bolts. As I was looking at it and lining it up to see which position I wanted, it turns out that this particular laser module and the bracket don't really go together. This whole laser kit was actually for the 3018 Prover, which is one of their routers. So what we have here are 6 holes and only 2 of them will line up at any one point. That should be plenty to hold the laser on, and that's what I ended up doing, was just screwing 2 of those bolts in. Before I screwed that on, I wanted to kind of see how this front piece went together with the bracket. So I assumed that it would be able to slide up and down so we could adjust the laser's height. This is a fixed focus versus a variable focus, and I need to move it up and down now to focus the unit. And as I'm looking at it, it turns out that this doesn't slide up and down. There are 4 bolts to go through here, and it secures the whole thing onto the gantry. There's absolutely no way to focus this. As I was starting to realize this, I was pondering in my head, how can we make this work? This is just ridiculous that we can't move the laser up and down. And I stared at this for a while. If you could see my head, you could see the smoke coming off of it as I was burning the coal, trying to figure out what I could potentially do. After a while, I realized that what I could do was connect those two holes together with a slot. And since we have the 3018 Pro router, why not use that to create the slot? So I put in a 2 flute straight cutting bit, and it is a 3.125 millimeter, 1/8 of an inch. And that's how big the holes are for these M3 bolts that go through. So I essentially just used the router and I cut between the holes. I went a little bit past on each side as well. So I end up with a nice long slot that this piece can slide up and down on. Once I was finished with this side, I moved the laser over to one of the holes on the opposite side and did the same thing. The intent is to be able to have this mounted onto the gantry, loosen up the 2 M3 bolts, and be able to slide the entire laser up and down to the appropriate position, lock it in place, and have a perfectly focused, fixed focus laser. I've cleaned away a little bit of the stuff. We can see those slots that I was able to machine in there. Now with those 2 slots, let's get the laser mounted onto this piece, and then we can get that screwed onto the front plate once it's ready. So as you can see here, there are 4 holes do line up, but I'm only going to use 2 of those as well so that I get the maximum amount of travel. The assembly here went pretty smoothly. The one thing that I did find when I started playing with this, as those bolts that go through that hold the V-groove bearings, they move nice and smoothly, but the heads of those bolts stick out and it prevents me from sliding the laser up and down as far as I'd like to. But there's the finished new gantry. We'll be able to slide that up and down a little bit at least, have some focusability. And the V-groove bearings on this seem a lot smoother, and once I put it back on the railing, it fit nice and snugly. Here I'm showing you an example of the focusing block. It's setting on the laser, and here are the 2 bolts that I just need to loosen up to move the laser up and down, and then I tighten those once it's in place. You can also see the heads of those 4 other bolts that kind of get in the way if I go up too high or too low. Hopefully I can recess those in. Here was a wiring test to make sure that I had the wiring correct for the swapping of the ground and the pulse width modulator. I had run a test with that just to make sure that everything fired up correctly. It did, so I soldered the wires together and wrapped them in electrical tape. Now it's time to plug this in and give it a real test. Reach around behind you, get it plugged in. This new laser controller kind of looks sweet too, with the little Sane Smart logo on there, nice blue color, very professionally done. We have the fan and the laser power connected there as well. Follow these wires around and then down to the laser emitter itself. Here's what it looks like all put together. Got the cords all wrapped in. Movement is nice and smooth, and I'm able to fire the laser, turn it on and off at a low power setting. Everything seems to be working. The next step will be to actually burn something. As always, I'll just do a quick frame around my burning area, make sure it's on the tile. And this particular burn it's going to take a while, and I was playing around with the parameters while it was burning. I increased the speed, I doubled the speed, and you can see it there. It isn't burning through as well as it had, so I slowed it back down. But again, it's just a test, and it worked out kind of as expected. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you like the content of our channel, please think about subscribing. It really helps us out. Enjoy doing your CNC at home projects.
groups